No, it's actually more. The last proper study that was conducted and research, Uganda showed that 65% of all alcohol consumed is illegal, counterfeit. Most of it because nobody knows under what quality of standards this was produced. Yeah. Very rudimentary settings to make these beverages. Only 35% of the consumption came from the formal sector, like our beers and the spirits of more reputable brands. So that's one difference from the emerging or more developed markets. We know that the lower income per capita drives this behavior because people are just looking for something cheap to consume.
Do you aspire for a booming middle-class economy? Listen along to understand what turns the wheels of Uganda's economy with our line of incredible influencers in their fields.
Welcome back to another episode of the podcast on Uganda. We are very excited to be hosting a very exceptional leader in the beverage industry in Uganda. Our podcast is about achieving a middle-class economy and finding out what really fuels the wheels of Uganda's economy. We have one of the top 10 taxpayers in Uganda, the representative and influencer at Rando, the MD of Nile Breweries Limited. Why I'm so excited is because I worked at Nile Breweries. I was trained at Nile Breweries. Even though I didn't drink much, I was nurtured by them, the work ethics, just the professionalism that I got from there, I take with me everywhere I go. I'm very proud to have been a part of your organization. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here.
Adu here has such a great experience, has been in China, Brazil, Tanzania. He did visit Uganda a few times before he was actually MD. We would want to understand how different is Uganda from all the markets you've worked in. I've read an article where you say that you see a glass half full. I would like for you to elaborate more and just tell us what you think of our market.
All right, thank you. Like you mentioned, this is now the fourth country that I work in. I've been with the brewery for almost 22 years. Interesting enough, East Africa market has more similarities than differences with the markets I worked in before. We have three clusters of markets around the globe, the very developed ones like the US, Canada, Europe, Australia. We have the in-between types of market that are still developing and maturing, but they're in a second stage. And then we have the markets like some of the countries here in Africa that we call level 1 in terms of development, where the beer consumption per capita is very low. Yeah. There's a lot of unique aspects about that. Because I worked in markets that were still growing and developing like Brazil and China, I see more similarities. If we compare this to a very mature market like the US and Europe, it's very different. The way beer is consumed, the amount it is consumed, the channels and the occasions are very different. But between a level 1 market like this in East Africa and Brazil and China, there's a lot of similarities.
Recently, we had a guest from another beverage organization who told us we consume a lot of what did they describe it, but not quality alcohol in Uganda. And I also read something from your writings that we consume 30% informal.
No, it's actually more. The last proper study that was conducted and research, Uganda showed that 65% of all alcohol consumed is illegal, counterfeit.
And that means it's dangerous.
Most of it, yes, because nobody knows under what quality of standards this was produced. Yeah. Very rudimentary settings to make these beverages. And then only 35% of the consumption came from the formal sector, like our beers and the spirits of more reputable brands. So that's one difference from the emerging or more developed markets. We know that the lower income countries, low income per capita drives this behavior because people are just looking for something cheap to consume. Yeah. And so this is one of the areas that we are working with the help of our global headquarters with a very structured project with different areas of initiative in terms of campaigning, advocating with the government, enforcing regulation more appropriately to limit the availability of this illicit alcohol that is harmful, and also advocating and campaigning with the shops, with the trade, so that we find a way to limit the amount that they end up selling, or ideally creating this consciousness in them that they shouldn't be selling alcohol that comes without a proper invoice or that there's no UNBS stamp, that type of stuff.
Okay, so Anheuser-Busch InBev, which is the parent organization of Nile Breweries Limited here in Uganda, has over 200 breweries worldwide. Quite exciting to see that Uganda is part of that. And Nile Breweries being top 10 of the tax contributors to our economy. I wonder what from other markets you've realized as trends that you're probably paying attention to.
Anheuser-Busch InBev is the largest brewery in the world. As a group, we brew and sell almost 1/3 of all beer in the world. Our size is almost double the second largest brewery in the world, which is the Heineken Group. Nile Breweries is part of the Anheuser-Busch InBev Brewing Group. We're very proud of that. We're fortunate to have excellent standards of operations in supply, logistics, sales, etc. In terms of quality, we have access to a lot of capital to invest here. Through that, we're big cash generating business worldwide, so that's good. And then in terms of the trends and brands, we benchmark a lot of other countries, right, other markets. So there's several things that we're studying and analyzing to possibly bring to Uganda and launch in the near future.
Yeah.
You've worked in the business, you probably remember this. Launching a product is not as simple as it sounds. Many aspects of it that needs to be considered in terms of capacity, investment, size of the opportunity. But we're definitely looking into this. There are opportunities we already see for the short term. We hope to come up with some new news.
Right.
To give one example that isn't coming yet, but eventually, the zero alcohol space.
Okay.
This has been a segment that is growing a lot worldwide. We have other priorities to tackle in terms of our portfolio offerings before the zero alcohol. But this is one that I like a lot because it provides a quality option of our beers for the days that you feel like having a beer, but you don't want to be consuming alcohol. So we'll see when we'll be able to.
I don't know if that will work for you in a market where we love to consume our beers.
No, and that's why it hasn't come yet. We tackle opportunities per the size of what we believe is there. There's a whole educational component of it. Back in the day, the offerings for no alcohol beer, given the technology we had before, the taste was really awful. It was like, why am I paying money to have no alcohol?
I'd rather have water.
Bad. But nowadays with the new technology, we're able to brew a beer that really tastes exactly like the same, but has no alcohol. So there's a lot of occasions for that. For example, going to a gathering where everybody is holding a bottle of beer, you don't want to be seen holding a glass of water. For example, there is peer pressure.
Yeah.
But if you're holding a bottle of no alcohol, it's a bottle of beer.
Yeah.
You're holding a bottle of beer just like everybody else, and you are drinking, and yet you don't have the alcohol. On a Monday night, you already drank your quota for the weekend, and then it's hot, and you want a cold beer. You have the option for no alcohol beer. That's also satisfying,
So why we brought on a Nile special at 10 a.m. Mark's recommendation. He thought it would be nice to have a beer in the morning. It depends on what point in life you are. Some people are on holiday, so anytime could be tea time or beer time. We're happy that we brought a Nile special. Wait a minute. Do you know what it will take for Uganda to achieve a middle-class economy by 2040? Please send us an email at onuganda@gmail.com. It's gold, right? It's been awarded gold in Belgium, and Nile Breweries in general has really superior results quarter in, quarter out. We went for a concert and I met a lot of old colleagues from the brewery. They were all at the other brewery, and I thought that means something. That means we had really good training, and that's why all this talent is being sought out. So I'm quite proud to have been a part of this team, but also it speaks to the culture of the company. You just spoke about collaboration, technology, and I was quite impressed with how much the brewery is doing now to work with the farmers, work with clients who are not consumers, but the retailers. Can you tell us more about bees, but also grit? Because I feel like from what you just mentioned, technology is intertwined in both of them. With your involvement in China, with the digital transformation, you fast-tracked that project with bees. How is bees performing here? What is the reception like, given the differences in transformation?
Good question. Speaking first about the GRID program, right, the Growing Retailers Innovatively. We're trying to make the acronym work. We have been directing a lot of our CSR initiatives to things that connect with our business, right? One of the refresh the principles of our global company. It talks about we grow with our customers and communities. We see every day an opportunity to skill the person behind the counter, managing the bar, the shop, and the restaurants. These are people from the community that saw that as an opportunity for income, and they simply opened up a space to sell beverages and some food to have an income. But they didn't go to school to learn about accounting, to learn about business management. And this is our knowledge that we could pass on to our customers, because if they run their shops better, they're going to be there longer. So it's connected with what we do. It is helping the communities. It is helping the customers. Last year, we trained about 300 customers, saw positive, strong feedback. And then this year we planned and we more than quadrupled that. So this year we did about 1,300 with events in different areas of Uganda. Last year we started with Kampala and we invited people. Some came from outside Kampala, but mostly were from Kampala. This time we took the program to other places. I participated in one in Hoima. Myself, I provided some training on beer pouring and proper management of the glass and how cold the beer needs to be and how to do. It's probably a little bit more of a fun part of the training than the rest of the things which are more management-wise. But I participated. It was really inspiring. There was a lot of people that came. And then on technology, on our application, Anheuser-Busch InBev globally invested more than $1 billion in this initiative to digitize and transform not only the way we sell our products to retailers, but how the relationship and the service goes. Because, the world is digital now. You can't continue doing things on a piece of paper forever. In my previous capacity in Tanzania, running the project to modernize processes for sales and logistics for 6 of our markets in Africa. The 2 markets were a little bit more evolved. The route to market connectivity and process was Tanzania and Uganda. We decided to launch that they were ready to have bees. I helped launch that before I even came to become the MD last year. For the first year and a half, it was more of an educational part of the journey, explaining how you could order online. In the early stages, we didn't have a lot of benefits to our customers ordering online versus not. This is something we addressed earlier this year through loyalty programs, so they earn points if they order online. We have special promotions that are only online. We're even offering free data for the customers that buy on a weekly basis. If they're buying every week, we don't want anybody thinking that they're wasting the data plan they bought on social media, on TikTok, because that's the fun stuff that we spend our money for, right? So we said, okay, if you're ordering weekly, I'll give you the data for that, even more than what you need to order. Now with that, we're seeing more traction. Our week active users have been growing a lot since Q1.
Did that upscale from the times of COVID?
Well, the COVID times was different because we didn't have bees yet. We had a partnership for last mile delivery to consumers, which is a little bit different, and that was very short-lived. But now we're in the all-time high number of users.
Congratulations.
Of our bees in the last 2 months. And we see all KPIs that you manage on the back end of the system, because every time somebody's interacting with your app, it leaves a crumb trail. You can see how many minutes.
Which is amazing.
That analysis. And all KPIs are showing strong growth. So we're quite happy about that. In certain areas, we're now even finding partners to offer products that are not just beer. Because if I'm a shop and I'm already online buying my beer, but I also sell oil, flour, or I need these things to run my business, salt, cooking oil, sugar. For select areas, we already have, they could purchase the beer and these other commodities in the same experience and receive within the same period of 24 hours, which is quite convenient.
That still goes back to how you actually have foot soldiers on ground, because it's known that during COVID, Nile Breweries was one of the organizations that could reach the deepest areas of Uganda, as opposed to the most essential organizations. Breweries were supporting such a cause to be a part of the change that we had to create for COVID. The Patriots are very interested about digital. Every podcast that has digital or tech, they're quite curious. You talked about how if your clients or your retailers continue or stay in business for longevity. While I worked at the brewery, there was a CSR campaign about education, but also I traveled once to Kapchora with my husband for a potato farming project. The wife of the farmer mentioned that she trains other women to grow barley
Yep.
I thought, oh my God, this organization follows me everywhere. It speaks to the longevity you're also talking about with your clients. You still want to see the farmers who are producing your local products, which I'm told is 100% locally sourced from Uganda.
It is. We're very proud of that. There's many things I'm proud of in regards to Nile Breweries and the things that we do, but there's two that hit. One is how proud I am of Nile Special as a brand. We could talk about the gold medals, but other things that I observe and appreciate. The other one is the farmers program, because in number of unique farmers, it is the biggest farmer support and training program of all of our operations in the world of Anheuser-Busch. No place in the world do we train as many unique farmers.
We are trendsetters. Uganda.
Unfortunately, we receive a good amount of support from global headquarters, good amount of attention, and it's made us go. And this has been a long journey, right? Long cooperation with the government as well, and I need to compliment the work of the government of Uganda to putting in place the right incentives that has led us to confidently invest in this initiative, right? So from the sorghum program, where we launched the 3 eagles that are made predominantly with sorghum, imagine the amount of income we're able to provide for sorghum farmers when before sorghum didn't have as much use. We have maize and even cassava that goes into beer.
I mean, maize and cassava we have in plenty. Barley, I thought was quite foreign. It's impressive to know that we...
Barley is more difficult to grow because it grows in certain altitudes. We have 2 areas that we have developed the farmers to grow. One is in up in Kapchora, that side, and the other one in the southwest, that altitude there.
Or Kisoro?
A few years back, I want to say 5 or 6 years, only about 70% of our raw material was grown and sourced locally.
Yeah.
And now we're hitting 99% of all things that go into our beer has been grown here in Uganda.
Yeah.
Last year we opened up a drying and storage facility of barley up in Kapchora to improve, to have the barley last longer and also have the yields for us to extract more, and not discard as much barley as it was before. So there's some good investment there. We should be opening one down in the southwest very soon as well. And one fun fact about the Kapchora barley, when we were at that event with the International Olympic Committee president, and I was speaking with our legend hero of the Olympics, Joshua Cheptegei. His family grows barley in Kapchora and sells. So the Cheptegei family is one of our barley farmers. It's like a full circle because we sponsor the athletic center up there. We contributed to the construction of it.
It's beautiful.
We sponsored the Olympic Committee, and then Cheptegei wins gold.
Olympics.
Turns out his family grows barley, so that's really exciting.
It's amazing how you support sport, but you are an alcoholic brand. Some people do not associate the two on the same platform. At the time when I was at the brewery, there was also a lot of drinking responsibly campaigns, evading domestic violence or all the after effects of drinking. So it's amazing that you're not just promoting or selling a beer, but you're also responsibly taking care of...
Nile Breweries was the pioneer of responsible drinking in Uganda, right? We were the ones that started putting proactively, not because it's law, we started putting messages on our labels about responsible drinking, not drinking if you are expecting, not drinking under the age of 18, which is the law here. We started that along with the campaigns that have been going on for years. We don't want, nor do we need, any profit that comes from harmful consumption. And matter of fact, I think the way that alcohol consumption is laid out through Uganda, the healthiest thing that we can do in terms of advocating is to convert people from drinking illicit hard liquor into beer, because that's healthy. It's much lower in ABV. It's made 100% with natural ingredients. And quite frankly, just from the people that we know, it's very rare to know somebody with an alcohol problem based on beer. Heavy alcohol dependency in drinking comes from liquor, from vodka, rum, these things. And there are several reputable studies from universities across the world that shows that there's only 2 types of alcoholic beverages that if you consume responsibly with small amounts, it actually gives you health benefits, including lower cholesterol, healthy heart, has vitamins, etc., which is red wine and beer.
I told my friend I'm going to interview you, and she said, "Oh my God, do you know if you drink one bottle of beer, it's equivalent to 3 cheese sandwiches?"
Cheese sandwiches, in terms of calories.
Yeah. And I thought, wait, what? So
What
interesting
this
how
cheese
that's
sandwich is
studied.
it looks like a very small cheese sandwich. The calories we consume, we need calories, right? That's why we eat.
Everything in moderation.
But in moderation, I think the opportunity for growth in the beer sector is still very large just by recruiting people that are consuming these harmful products or hard liquor into the beer segment, which is lower or natural. But we're against abuse. We advocate for people to have water in between,
Yeah.
eat a meal before they drink,
Yeah.
not ever drink and drive.
Yeah. Still a thing here. People drinking and driving.
There's
Coming
also
less and
people
less, but we
in-
still have
in
people.
many parts of the world. I remember this being a piece that we worked with the government back in Brazil when I was in the operation there. We actually donated thousands of breathalyzers for the police to run checks, etc. And the numbers really came down. I think it's a behavior across different societies that we need to advocate and have people conscious not to do, and provide alternatives as well.
You really do mean the statistics. You talked about longevity for your clients. I have known you have involved yourself in environmental causes, River Rizi, which is quite interesting because it's on the way home.
We're doing an exceptional piece of work there in cooperation with our Africa headquarters. The team there has been fantastic in assisting, providing support. Water stewardship is one of the pillars that we work with that, like I mentioned, that is very connected with our business because obviously we need water to brew. But more importantly, the world needs water to survive. One interesting fact is any place that we set up a brewery, like we did in Marara, we help cleanse the water streams around. With the technology that we have today, we can take any water and put it in the perfect, purest standard pH, etc. Then we brew the beer. Before we discard the water, we treat it again. So that acts as a huge filter in the river. So that's one thing, right? That goes on anywhere we set up a brewery. But we've been doing a ton of work around the river to improve the quality and the quantity. Up until now, we've restored about 27 kilometers of the river. We've done campaigns, advocating and educational training for about 1,200 families that lived across the riverbanks. People don't understand or know the negative impact that some of their activities can have on the river. And by educating and providing alternatives for them, these 200 families started different activities for their own income around the riverbanks. They now act as advocates to help preserve the rivers. That's fantastic. This is sustainable. Some of them went into beekeeping and honey making instead of whatever activity they were doing that was degrading the river, cattle raising, and some other crops that they were able to plant a little bit away from the river to preserve it. So we launched the report to WWF showing the tangible progress we've made there. And then last month we hosted a workshop with delegates from 7 different countries from WWF and our company to define the next wave of actions to continue to restore further up on the River Rizi, and we're quite excited about that.
Nice. I wish you all the best of luck. I saw that on your LinkedIn. You talked about digital transformation. I think it's always nice to use data to inform your decisions as a brand or as an individual. Digital transformation here is quite picking up. And today there was an article in the Daily Monitor, Harmonize DT costs with other ESC states.
The digital tax stamps. Yeah. That's a very good topic that we have been frustrated about. Digital tax stamp is the methodology that the government found to track the goods you produced so that they could charge tax on, which is a great thing, and they should do that. We advocate in favor of this because if 65% of all alcohol consumed here is not paying tax, it's too cheap, too available, nobody knows the standards and all that stuff. So we're in favor of that. But the problem is, this is a tool acquired by the government to check on production. And then after 1 or 2 years, they passed on the costs to the manufacturer, which by itself is a bit strange. Most governments, this cost is supposed to be theirs. But not only that, we pay a much higher cost per stamp than our neighboring countries like Kenya, Tanzania, and Rwanda, and it's the same company. It's one company from Switzerland, this money goes to Switzerland and it's a complete waste. It's money that all industries could be reinvesting in growing their businesses and capacity in new products and new things. And nowadays, with the use of blockchain technology, there is alternatives that are more accurate, better, for about 10% of what it costs today. So imagine if the government understands this and implements that technology, it saves up 90% of the current cost. It goes back to the business to reinvest, and they are able to verify the production more accurately in a more timely manner than the current technology with this company. So the article today talks about the pledge from industries alike, not just the beer industry, but consumer goods at large, at least in the short term, lower the cost of this tax unit to be more reasonable versus the neighboring countries that use the same technology and charge less. So that's the hard.
What else did you change apart from this in the way you do business as a brewer? Since we're about knowing what fuels the wheels of Uganda's economy, what would you change? You have experience in China, Brazil, Tanzania. What would you change about doing business in Uganda?
Look, I think the government of Uganda does a lot more things right than not. So I have more to commend them on than to criticize. But I think there are opportunities. I do criticize the digital tax stamps current regime. I think it's a bit abusive, and that's what we're advocating for. But other than that, I think what's key to continue to attract foreign investment and further develop the country is to be consistent, right? Consistent in your tax regimes and trustworthy in your judicial system and honoring contracts and not changing the rules of the game too often, right? Because that's what frightens investors that don't know the country very much. We've been here for many years and we'll be here for many years, so we're used to understanding and adjusting to the dynamic, but consistency is key. And I think the Ugandan government has been more consistent than our neighboring countries, and that is reflecting in our economy being well in the last few years and looking to continue to grow. The biggest opportunity is really to work with the government and helping to give them the tools to fight the illicit alcohol problem, because not only will we be able to improve the health of our society, but we're going to help boost the earnings for the government. It's a win-win. The formal sector will grow, we'll then pay more taxes to the government, people will drink healthier products. These are the things we're about to work on with the government. We have some proposals coming up, utilizing a toolkit that we're already implementing in countries like Zambia, Tanzania. So I think there's a big opportunity.
Good luck with utilizing that toolkit and making sure that it's used. So the very last question, what excites you about Nile Breweries?
I've worked in sales logistics projects for 6 of our countries in Africa. In these countries that I visited, I tasted our beers and I observed our brands. Did I see anything remotely as close to how powerful, strong, and beautiful Nile Special is for Uganda? It brings me a lot of joy, a lot of pride. And I tell my team that obviously I'm not Ugandan, so that's the lens that I see things through when I come, right? What is it from Uganda that a tourist would be super happy to take home?
Your butter.
Nile Special, right? Special, or the beer itself. It's such a good product. It's such a cool brand. It is connected with the biggest passion points of all Ugandans: the rugby, football, sports, moments of enjoyment.
You're always there.
It's a beautiful liquid. It's a fantastic liquid. And so it's that combination of image, a brand image, but also brand quality. One thing that the outside public normally doesn't have access to know is internally all the brews of all breweries in the world, but let's just keep it in Africa, gets tasted every month for quality purposes, and they are rated scientifically, specs that regular consumers don't really see. And there's a rating every year. The division, our supply division of Africa Zone ranks the beer. And our last year, Nile Special was number 1 and number 2 of the top 3 in all of our beers in Africa in terms of quality specs. Number 1 was Nile Special that we produce in Marara. Number 2 was Nile Special that we produce in our plant in Jinja. That's
maybe it's something about the water.
That's how impressive the
Uganda.
Quality of Nile Special is. Now think about this. It was ranked against Castle Lager of South Africa, Hero of Nigeria, Kilimanjaro of Tanzania, and it was number 1 and number 2 in terms of quality specs. So that's how fantastic of a work our supply team here does in terms of
Let's
quality.
just say you are a great salesman. I've never had anyone describe a beer so
And
beautiful.
it's not about the taste yet.
Yeah, I mean,
The quality of the brew. Of the
experience,
taste.
and I already imagine myself
Yeah.
tasting it.
On the taste.
It's a beautiful liquid.
It's the only beer in Africa that won 23 gold medal awards in Belgium. Now that's more about the taste, about the perception and the specs.
But you talked about the design as well.
Yeah,
Like,
no.
I know a friend who the big bottles, and I just don't think of the design.
The liquid is fantastic. Another interesting story that normally I don't tell to people is I received a visit from a Belgian colleague who now works in St. Louis in the United States at our headquarters of the world, right? Where the famous Budweiser brewery was first built. I worked with him in China before. He was here for a work visit. Now he is a beer sommelier, even though he works with the farming, procurement, etc. But he's a beer sommelier, many years in the business from Belgium. And he sits in the panel that tastes the Budweiser brews of different parts of the world to ensure quality and standardization. So he knows the specs as well, right? So he's a big beer connoisseur. And I had him come to my house, and we barbecued, and we're drinking now special. I didn't say anything. It was before I even said anything. He took a sip. He was already in Kampala for a couple of days. He looked at me and goes, Adu, with a Belgian strong accent, let me tell you this. I don't know the preference of the consumers, if they like the taste, that's one thing. But in terms of quality, this is one of the best beers I've ever had in my life.
Uganda.
He's Belgian, worked in Europe, worked in China, works in the US. He sits on the panel that tastes all Budweiser brewed across the world for standard, and that was his comment, unsolicited.
Yeah.
I didn't say anything, I just served him beer. And he told me this, and I was like, wow, and that's a big compliment from a guy that is an expert, you know. So that was really cool.
I'm honestly now sold to try it. I haven't tried it before in Nile Breweries. That's fantastic to hear. I wonder for that young listener who is trying to get into sales. You have sold a lot of these for a while. I just like the way you expressed your love for this beer specifically. What advice would you have for that one young listener today if they're getting into sales?
Well, I hope people are interested in working with us. Our sales division is quite large. We provide the tools, we provide the training. To me, what makes a difference nowadays in hiring somebody or even in how they will stay in the business is simply the level of commitment and effort that somebody's putting in. And that doesn't mean that you need to work 16 hours a day. It means that the hours that you're supposed to be at work, that you're fully committed and trying to do the best that you can at that time. Because then everything else, it's our job to teach as more experienced people. We can't teach somebody to work hard. It's like, hey man, you're lazy, now go work hard. That's an obvious thing, right? So if you're hardworking, you open-minded to learn, you seek feedback, and you try to be a little bit better than you were yesterday. You're always going to do fine.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Now, the very last question we ask every guest that comes onto this podcast. Are you ready? What do you think it's going to take for Uganda to achieve a middle-class economy?
Look, it's a sum of many things. I participated in the Economic Forum at Media Park with NBS. The PSST delivered a speech that was quite inspiring, where he talks about the 5 pillars that the government has set forth to tenfold the GDP of the country from the current 50-something billion to 500 billion in the next 15 years. And to be honest, I think if the government, society, private sector alike manage to execute on those 5 pillars, I think we'll see exponential growth. I'm quite excited to see that level of professionalism, strategic thinking, and ambition with a specific North Star to chase from the government. I encourage people to learn more about it. So those 5 pillars connect to the things that, if done right, will attract more investment, will develop the country, we'll see a boost in education and behavior and willingness to grow, and then going to grow further and become a powerhouse in the region.
And what will NBL do?
We'll continue to invest in the country, in capacity, in technology, in transformation, in job creation. And hopefully, as we see the growth of Uganda materialize, that will generate demand for new products, different products that will really boost the need for us to further invest.
Different products. Budweiser. I love the adverts on the Super Bowl. They all have horses, and it's very exciting to see. But yeah, maybe if we have more products on the market, then we have a lot of variety for our consumers. This was lovely. Where else can people find you? I know you're on LinkedIn.
Yeah, my LinkedIn, mostly. I do Rando on LinkedIn, and you'll be able to see my posts and updates from my site.
Yeah, thank you so much for making time. I know you're such a busy person, but you sacrificing your time to come here and speak to our dear patriots and what really fuels the wheels of Uganda's economy is on our end. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the invitation. It was a pleasure to be here and talk to the patriots.
Thank you for listening in this part. I really hope that this conversation was helpful to you. Share this episode with your colleagues or friends that you think will benefit from this information. Let them know what you're listening to. Would you also rate our podcast? Because once you rate our podcast, other people like you are able to listen to this information and use it to their own benefit. On a lighter note, follow us on TikTok and Instagram. Would really like to hear your thoughts.